Do you want to be able to speed run nightmare dungeons at even 5 to 10 levels higher than you and do some of the hardest content in the game while also being able to completely stagger bosses within mere seconds, as well as completely taking those bosses down within one stagger mechanic? And AoE that's just as good as fire, while also being able to maintain your health and not take any damage? Then I got the build for you. What's up, World Trigger? Back in with another video, and today we're checking out all things Diablo 4. Okay, so let's quickly jump into the build. Now I'm going to go over the skill traits very quickly because we got to jump into the Paragon board and we got to jump into some of the Legos, but you don't need anything to make this build work. I've already covered this build in another video, so if you really need me to deep dive on the actual skill points, stuff like that, I have a link down below to the actual video where I cover a ton of it, but we'll just go over it super quickly, as I'm not going to cover too much into this or go over all the traits to exact level keys, but I'll try my best. So we're going to grab Frostbolt. Obviously we'll go into Enhanced Frostbolt, Glinting Frostbolt, we'll go into Ice Shards, we'll jump into Enhanced Ice Shards, and then we'll grab Destructive for that vulnerability. We're obviously going to go mana here because mana is really good there, and the vulnerability you don't really need yet. So we'll also, and I forgot to cover this in my other video, we're going to take Teleport. I have an item contribution right now, so I don't have it like actually selected, but you're going to want to go into that. Glass Cannon, 3 of 3, you're going to want that. Elemental Tunic, Lucky Hit Chance. This is great. Critical Strikes have a 15% chance to reset defense cooldowns. We're taking 3 defense cooldowns with this build, so you really want this Lucky Hit Chance. It's very good. We're also going to build Lucky Hit. I'll show that later. However, I would probably recommend, this is one thing where I recommend the leveling stuff. I would recommend going into Ice Armor and then going into Mana almost immediately, and then you can go into Glass Cannon and kind of negate all that damage. Unless you're comfortable with that damage take, then that's fine. Then you don't need Ice Armor right away. However, Ice Armor is going to do a lot for us. It's going to apply a ton of different stuff. You'll see with the gear. So we're on Frost Nova. Frost Nova is really good as well. This is going to imply we're going to go into Enhanced Frost Nova and our Mystical Frost Nova. Again, Mystical Ice Armor we do go into. You might not have to go into this. I do kind of like it because you'll see how many we're making a lot of mobs vulnerable. You see like all that damage from Blizzard. It's really nice. And so we want to get this down as low as possible, this Frost Nova, and also with our vulnerability here, which will be nice to keep our ice barrier up. Again, might not need it. You'll see. We want to go into align the elements right away. So if you do have this and you are leveling and go into align the elements right away, you really don't need precision chance magic or precision magic until later on, so maybe save this one for later. We have to go into Icy Veil. We have to go 1 in order to grab these 2, which are really good. Snap Freeze and Cold Front. Again, those are applying cold chills and also Lucky Hit Chance. Blizzard, one of our main abilities. We're going to go into Blizzard and get this high up as you can. If you have item contributions, that'll really help. We're also going to go into deal increased damage, and then we're going to go into when you cast above 50 mana, it increases the duration by 4 seconds. Absolutely massive, and we don't need this one. 10% less mana on a 30 cost mana ability isn't that much. 3 mana, it's not going to do a lot. We're going to go into Foley here, Permafrost, all these. You want to get all these 3 of 3. However, as soon as this unlocks, you're going to want to grab your passive first. Now let's jump into the Paragon portion. We're going to go over this kind of quickly, but I'll try my best. So 2 things with this, with the Paragon. First off, I would, if you are having troubles between the levels of 68 to 72, you're going to have a bit of level with damage mitigation. And it's going to be a little rough. You're going to get one shot quite often, especially in Nightmare Dungeons, and even trying to push that T4 section. So if you are having that damage trouble, and if you are getting limited a lot and kind of struggling, then I would not go for the second board, which is Frigid Fate. I would go for Icefall. Icefall is going to give you frozen enemies, grant you 15% of your maximum life every time you down them, and that is just absolutely massive. It's really good. It's so strong because we're eliminating enemies so quickly. We're getting that barrier up very fast. They also have several damage mitigation things in here. Like on this side here, we have some damage reduction from chilled enemies, although I don't know if I would go into that just yet. I don't really know if I am going to ever go into this. I don't really need it too much, but there's a ton of mitigation here that you can go into if you feel that you aren't mitigating damage. You can also get a bunch of things on your gear, and I'll showcase that in a bit. However, we'll quickly go over here. I think I have this level 11, which is the Glyph Socket for Enchanter. Really good here. 40% non-physical damage, and this is also applying non-physical damage with these rare nodes. A ton of non-physical damage. Again, we're a mage. We're not doing physical damage, so we're going to want to go into that. Kind of want both sides here on this side, as you can see. The second board I went with was Frigid Fate, dealing cold damage. Gives your lucky hit chance an increase, which also was doing a bunch of stuff. I'll showcase my gear again. That's going to have a lot of lucky hit on there, which is doing some really cool stuff that you'll see here. Our Glyph Socket here is Frostbite, which again is going to do additional damage to chilled enemies. Also really good. However, this Glyph Socket I am going to switch out because we cannot get the willpower requirement, which is also giving us that damage mitigation. And so this board is really going to be using that glyph socket here, with a ton of willpower around that. You're going to want to use that one instead if you need that damage mitigation right away. However, I'll showcase kind of what you can do to mitigate that for now, so you don't have to use that as the second board. You can kind of do exactly what I did. And again, we're going to come into here, we're going to grab those rare nodes. Vulnerability damage, we want all the vulnerability damage. We really don't need this willpower, so we'll skip that stuff. We want lucky hit chance. We'll come up here and grab our lucky hit chance. Ton of lucky hit chance is going to be really good for us. We come into here, we grab our ice vault as quickly and as soon as possible. Although first, I would come and grab this stuff, because this stuff does a lot of non-physical damage, chilled enemy damage. It's really, really good for damage right here. Let's just jump into our gear really quickly, and you can kind of see all the legendaries that I have. However, again, none of these legendaries are required, not really needed. We have the barrier damage. This is really good for mitigation. I would grab this one. It's pretty much a must. We also have increased armor. This one's really, really, really good, especially with how much damage we're outputting. It increases armor by a ton. You're going to have a ton of armor with this one, so I would recommend using it. The deal increased damage while you have a barrier is really good, because we're applying barriers to ourselves all the time. We have a barrier here, so you're constantly increasing your damage by 22%. This one's pretty much a must. I would take it over a lot of other things. This one is not really a must. Take 22% less damage from crowd control enemies or vulnerable enemies. You don't really need this one, and this is one that I've been debating on swapping out for a long time, especially for ice shards and things like that. And so you probably could swap this one out, but for now, we're going to take it, and it does help with damage mitigation. We're also going to take some gems here, some 4% life that helps. Now, this one's really, really good. 20% increased crowd control while enemies are while enemies are unstoppable, you deal 40% damage. So you'll see, while enemies are going to be coming unstoppable all the time, especially in these later nightmare dungeons, when you're doing constant damage to them, putting out all these AoEs on top of them, they're going to be coming unstoppable, running around. So this is really, really good to take those guys down as quickly as possible. Also here, we have another crowd control increased duration. When you are healthy, your increased duration is by 40%, up to 40%, mine to 38. And then you have a 19% increased critical strike chance against injured enemies. Really good for taking down bosses at the very end. This one's kind of fun. It's got a bunch of lucky hit on there. We got lucky hit chance to slow, although we don't really need the slow, but it is what it is. We have the 5% chance to restore 18% of primary resource. We also have the 5% chance to heal for 1200, and I'll show you later another gear piece that might really, really help with that if you really need the barriers. We also have this one. This one's a must. Avalanche Key passive now applies to 1 additional cast. This is going to allow you to apply 2 blizzards. That's 80 mana. Absolutely insane. It's also going to keep you above 100 mana, and so both of those blizzards are going to probably cast for 12 seconds if you are above 50 mana. Now we also have here, this one's pretty much a must as well. You deal 25% more damage to immobilize enemies. I have one that's really high. I have one that's like 70%, although I'm not going to use it for now, so this one is a little bit lower. And then this one, when you freeze an enemy, there's a 47% chance that they become vulnerable for 3 seconds. This one is absolutely fantastic as well. It's going to apply that vulnerability damage that we did in our first board, which did a lot in our Paragon board with our vulnerability damage. Which on our vulnerability damage here, it does a ton. We have a lot of vulnerability damage here, so we want to really proc that as much as we can. And there is one more gear piece to talk about, because Veiled Shot talked about it, and it is really, really strong, and I just caught this drop, although I'm not sure I'm going to use it yet, and the reason, I'll show you why. We have our legging piece right here. So this is pretty good. Effects that heal you beyond 100% grant you a barrier. Again, more barriers and barriers and barriers, which is really, really good for that increased damage. It's also going to help us a lot there. The reason why I'm not taking this right now is because my piece currently has 3 ranks of Blizzard increased, and that's pretty hard to get. And I don't really like the traits on this one so far with the all stats potion drop chance. I mean, that's nice. Potion drop chance is nice. The lucky hit's really good, and the healing received is pretty decent too for the barrier. It's okay overall, and I might swap to it. However, I don't know if I want to lose that 30% or 25%, 20%-ish of Blizzard ranks and Blizzard damage. So for right now, I'm not taking it. However, if you feel the need that, I know a lot of people in my comment section were saying that there's no damage mitigation, then go ahead and take this. Now, you can also focus on things like max life when you're looking at the traits, things of that nature. You can get the the increased health, which really do help. However, right now, I cannot get one shot. That's the main thing that I'm looking for. Don't get one shot. Around like I said, 68 to 72, you're going to struggle a little bit with the damage mitigation. However, if you have around 3.6k to 3.7k health, then you won't get one shot. To me, that's good enough. And because I can easily apply a potion, get my barrier back up, I'm right back in the game. I want the damage, so I don't need the extra health. However, if you do, then I would start getting gemmed out, and health gems, max life gems, and also start looking for something like this where it says maximum life increase 500. Start getting some of those on your gear pieces, and then you can increase your life even further. However, I don't need it now, and I'm still able to clear these nightmare dungeons. Realistically, when you're farming, you really want to do them around 4 levels higher than you, and so I don't need to go any higher than that. I don't need to go 8 to 10 levels. However, if you want to kind of push those higher dungeons and don't want to get one shot completely, you'll probably want to use some of that damage mitigation stuff. Also, last but not least, because I always forget this, skill assignments. We're going to go Frostbolt, and we're going to go Ice Shards. Now, again, I had a ton of comments in my other videos where people were taking Fireball and Inferno and things like that. I really didn't like the damage it put out. It was fine overall, but honestly, by the time you're downing enemies, you really don't need this. You're downing enemies so fast, you'll see in the events, they're going so quickly out of the way. The Fireball enchant's not going to do anything. All the enemies are gone anyway, so I wouldn't take the Fireball enchant. And 21% chill effect, this is insane for boss staggers. And boss staggers, you can literally one-shot through them. Like, I do so much damage in the boss stagger mechanic that I can stagger the boss within like the first 75% or the first 25% of damage. And then that 75%, I can literally take the boss down to 0. I can immediately down a boss all the way from 75% all the way to 0 through that stagger mechanic because of how quickly I was able to apply that chill and having that damage increase on the barriers, stuff like that. So I would honestly take chill because it's just so good. It freezes enemies quickly, it gets that vulnerable damage out, it gets so much stuff done that you really do need. And Ice Shards is a must. You have to take this one. It's automatically conjure and fly towards frozen enemies. It's just too good. No reason not to take it. But that does about cover for today's video. If you enjoyed, like and subscribe. Until the next one. Deuces.